I want you to picture something for a moment for me. A group of people gathered together singing, not reluctantly, not quietly, singing with everything they got. Arms around each other, voices rising, the kind of singing that fills whatever space it's in and spills out the edges. And the song they're singing is a joyous one, you all know, one we just heard but 2 minutes ago. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forward to carry me home. You can picture it, can't you? Maybe it's a church camp sitting around a fire. Maybe it's a congregation like this one on a Sunday morning. Maybe it's a stadium full of people who just love the melody. This is, after all, the unofficial anthem of England's national rugby team. It's a warm image. It's a happy one. The brightest day that I ever saw coming forward to carry me home, when Jesus washed my sins away, coming forward to carry me home. Now let me tell you where that song was really born. Not around a campfire, but in the ashes of a burning cross. Not in sanctuary pews, but in chains. Not in a stadium, but in a field. They did not choose and they could not leave. Friends, this is not a camp song. It is a cry from the depths of human suffering. It is theology forged in fire. And before we sing it again in our lives, before we let it wash over us one more time as a warm, familiar melody, we owe it to the first singers to understand what they were actually saying. Because they knew something about faith that most of us will spend our entire lives trying to learn. And it's all right there. In this song, we thought we knew. The truth that hope is not the absence of suffering. Hope is the defiant refusal to let suffering have the final word. So where does this image come from, this chariot swinging low? 2 Kings. Elijah and Elisha walking together. And Elisha knows what's coming. His teacher, his counselor, this father of his faith, the man who shaped everything he knew about God, is leaving. But he won't let Elijah take this journey alone. 3 times Elijah tells his beloved student to stay. And 3 times Elisha refuses to listen. As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. This isn't some sentimentality. This is the fierce, costly faithfulness of a man who decided that love means staying. And then it happens. Not gently, not quietly, a chariot of fire, horses of fire, a whirlwind that sweeps up Elijah and carries him home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Elisha, left standing there watching, cries out, "Father, my father!" The chariots of Israel and its horsemen. Elisha is standing there, disoriented, overwhelmed, full of awe and grief, not knowing if he should worship or weep. The chariot is not a gentle image. It's fire and it's horses and it is a whirlwind. And it all arrives on God's terms, not Elijah's, not Elisha's, not our terms. The God of this image, the God of Israel, our God, is not a tame one. God is not domesticated by our expectations or our comfort. God is the one who parts the waters of the Jordan and sends fire and moves the whirlwinds. The God whose deliverance is real and wild and utterly beyond our control. And here is what those enslaved singers knew that we sometimes, too often really, forget. That is good news. When every earthly power has failed you, when every institution has betrayed you, when every human promise has been broken, the God who shows up in fire and in whirlwind, the God who leads the people out of slavery is not frightening. That God is the only hope you have left. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I am coming too. Coming for to carry me home. The chariot does not swing low for the comfortable and the powerful. It swings low for the ones the world has forgotten. That is who this God is. That is who our God is. That is what this image meant to the people first singing this song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. They weren't singing some cute little song. They were calling on the God of Elijah, the God of fire and of whirlwind, full of faith and hope. That is the God they were calling to. Not a distant, decorative deity. Not the comfortable Sunday morning version of God that asks us little and costs us even less. The first singers of this song were calling on the God of fire and whirlwind, the God who shows up for the forgotten children. And they knew in their bones, in their souls, that they were exactly the kind of people that this God shows up for, always, because no other power cared. So we often want to forget that part of our story, or lessen it at the very least. The people singing this song were not reaching for a comforting image on a hard day's work. They were singing from the ruins of everything, stolen from their homes, stripped of their families, their names, their languages, their dignity, everything that makes a human whole. They were owned, bought and sold, beaten and killed. They watched as their children were taken from their arms and sold to strangers, and they would never see them again. And there was nothing they could do. No court to which they could appeal. No institution to protect them. No earthly power on their side. Not even the church. Because the same Bible that promised them deliverance was used by their captors to justify their chains. The God whose chariot they were singing about was invoked by the people who owned them to keep them in their place. They sang this song in the shadow of that betrayal. I looked over the Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me. Coming for to carry me home. This is not some escapism. This is not pretending it isn't as bad as it really is. No, this song is a lesson in pure theology. The people singing these words looked at every institution, every court, every government, every power, every church, and watched them all fail them, one after another. And yet they looked past all of it and still said, there is a God behind all of this, and that God is coming for us, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Heaven was not an escape. It was proof that the struggle would not win. The chariots were not fantasy, they were a verdict. A declaration to the world, standing on their backs to the people who owned their bodies, that they would never own their souls. They did not own their future. They did not own their God. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. They sang this song in the fields. They sang it on the line. They sang it when the night was longest and the morning felt impossibly far away. And every time they sang this song, they were shouting to the world the same message. We are not forgotten. The chariots are coming, and they're coming for us. You know what this song really is? The author of Hebrews this morning names it perfectly. It is faith. Not blind optimism, not wishful thinking, not refusing reality because it's just too hard to face. Hebrews describes people who faced this world and all of its brutality, who saw exactly how broken the world was, how cruel and unjust people can be to one another, and who died still believing the promise anyway. People who, as Hebrews tells us, greeted it from a distance. And Hebrews tells us not that they were foolish for believing, but that God is not ashamed to be called their God. Think about that. This God was not looking for warriors or strong men. The God of creation, the God who made the stars and the planets, the galaxies, the entire universe, that same God looks at the people who refuse to let earth's verdict stand, who sang about chariots of fire in fields they could not leave, who greeted promises that they would never fully receive, who lived in chains and said, "Those are my people. I love their faith." That is the God we worship today. The God who is not embarrassed by defiant hope. The God who honors the faith that keeps singing when the chariot still hasn't come. When the chariot cannot even be seen. Through it all, they were still waiting. And God calls that faith. And so now here we are. We who sing this song around campfires. We who hum it in sanctuaries on a Sunday morning. We who have it let wash over us as a warm, familiar melody without once asking what we're holding. Well, now we know. Now we know, and knowing changes everything. It has to change everything. Because how can we possibly stand on the inheritance of that kind of faith and remain unchanged by it? How can we possibly sing the songs of people who suffered the true depths of human depravity and go home to live exactly as we did yesterday? What does it mean that we sing these songs today? It means we have received what those first singers never did. And I hope and I pray that we will honor it. Freedom, voice, platforms, resources. These are the very things that were systematically stolen from them that we now hold. And that is no small thing. It is an enormous, sobering, humbling gift. Which means this song is no longer just worship. It is a statement. It is a declaration. It is a commitment. I'm sometimes up and I'm sometimes down, coming forward to carry me home. But still my soul feels heavenly bound, coming forward to carry me home. Every time we sing this song, we are saying that we serve a God who swings low for the forgotten. The God who shows up for the ones every earthly institution has failed. The God who is not ashamed of the people the world has thrown aside. Friends, there are today nearly 50 million people living in modern slavery conditions today, and about a quarter of them are kids. So the only question we have left is whether or not we mean the words we sing, because the world continues to do their same. Institutions all over continue to throw out and ignore the most vulnerable. We can't control them, but we are the church. And the God we worship does not stay in the sanctuary. God goes into the fields. God goes to the people in chains, whatever those chains look like today. God goes to the ones crying out with no earthly power on their side, but will we? The chariots didn't swing low so we could feel good on a Sunday morning. They swing low because God refuses to abandon the suffering. But will we? Friends, the first singers of this spiritual, they didn't just sing. They ran, they hid people, they passed messages in the words of their songs, coordinates, directions, hope within the melodies, so the people who owned them couldn't hear what they were saying. They built communities of survival because no one else cared. Their hope was not passive. It was not decorative. It was dangerous. Their hope was defiant. Not hope that sits and waits for things to get better. Not hope that sings on Sunday and goes back to yelling at the news on Monday. Defiant hope looks at everything: the fire, the whirlwind, the chains, the burning cross, the valley that never seems to end, and says, this is not the final word, because the chariots are coming. And until they do, there is work to be done by the church. You see, we have inherited something extraordinary today. Not just a song, but a theology of defiant hope, a way of seeing the world that was forged in suffering, that we will never fully understand, offered to us as a gift that we will never fully earn. But swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. What do we do with that? Pretend it's not a big deal? Or do we become a people who swing low with God, toward the suffering, toward the denied, toward the ones that every other institution has forgotten or failed? Today and tomorrow and the day after that, let's go where the chariots go, to the margins, the broken places, the ones crying out with no earthly power on their side. Carry this song not just in our voices, but in our everyday lives, because it's what this song calls us to do. And it's what the people who first sang it deserve. Not an audience, but a witness. People who heard their cry, coming for to carry me home, and decided to help carry them. That chariot is still swinging. The only question we have left to answer is whether or not we are willing to go wherever it leads. Amen.